Hi, this is KG, and today I wanted to talk about how to wire a POE security camera for an NVR-based camera surveillance system. Over the past few months, I have researched and bought an NVR system called Reolink, which came with 4 cameras that have since wired at different locations around the house. So this is the system, Reolink. Reolink camera system comes with the NVR, a 2 terabyte hard drive, and 4 cameras. As I mentioned, but these additional cameras I wanted to add now to the setup, so these will make it 6 total, and I already have a planned location for these 2 outside the house. These are again PoE cameras. PoE stands for Power over Ethernet, which is, as the name suggests, power is delivered via Ethernet cables. So these have Ethernet cable where you plug in your Ethernet cable from the back of your NVR to this camera, which provides the power as well as the data bandwidth to carry the video signals from the camera to the NVR. So now let's quickly talk about the Ethernet cable. So this is the cable that connects to the network port on the camera as well as the network port on the back of the NVR. So in my case, I wanted to future-proof my cabling as much as possible. So I went with Cat 8 wire, which offers 40 gigabits per second over distances up to 98 feet. This is more than enough to carry 8K video at 60 frames per second, way more than the current cameras I have in my setup. So these are 4K cameras, but they top out at 25 frames per second. So at the moment, Cat 8 cable is way overkill for the cameras that I have. But the idea was that once I have the cabling in place, I can always upgrade the cameras later on when 4K 60 or 8K cameras come into the market. The incremental cost of Cat 8 over, let's say, Cat 6, which is a lower bandwidth Ethernet cable, was small enough for me to justify spending a little more for the Cat 8 cable just to future-proof my system. So I also stuck to a reputed brand made in USA called LinkUp. It has a thick 22 gauge wire, and let me show you the brand. It comes in 2 lengths, 50 meters and 100 meters. So I bought the 50 meter one for now because I'm just wiring those 2 additional cameras. The other ones are already wired. So this company is in California, and it also makes connectors. So I would need a termination kit. So this is the termination kit that I bought. You basically put it over the end of the wire and attach it to the camera as well as the back of the NVR. So as I mentioned, you also need to buy that termination plug, which I have, and this is it's a kit of 4 that I bought. So you need 2 of these for each camera, and so I bought 4 of these, so it'll be enough for the two cameras. So it has the plug itself, the boot, and then a safety cover, and this is kind of like a locking mechanism that keeps the bare wires in place when you lock it down, and I'll show you that in a minute. So you also need a wire stripper and a cutter as well to strip the wire and cut the wire to the right lengths based on your camera locations. Anyway, enough of that. Now onto the wiring of this Cat 8 cable. Okay, so here we go. And this is the NVR that I was talking about. So as I mentioned before, these 4 cables, they are already connected to my 4 cameras that are already wired. So now I'm going to terminate the 5th one, or wire up the 5th one. The cable is already ready. This is the other end of this is connected to the camera already, and I've already wired it and terminated it and plugged into the camera. Now this end, I'm going to show you how to terminate this with the connector or terminator kit that I bought on Amazon that I showed you earlier. And then this end would go into the back of the NVR, connecting the NVR up to the camera. So let's begin. So the first thing to do is to put in the boot. So first of all, this is the kit, that termination kit that I bought. So this little piece here with a black end, that's the boot. So let's get this out. Okay, so now I have the kit. Here's the boot. So the first thing to do is to put the boot on with the black end going in first, like so. So the next thing to do is to strip this yellow sheathing off of it, so to expose the conductors. So I'm going to use this little tool that I also bought off of Amazon. This is specifically for stripping and cutting wires. So I'm going to do that. Just leave about 1 inch or 1.25 inches from the end. So all you do is basically just strip off the yellow sheathing. So this then should just slide off. There you go. So the next thing to do is to take this foil and wrap it around the base of the wire. like so. And then the Terminator kit came with this copper foil. So this copper foil will go around this. So it's like it's a sticker. You just peel off one end and wrap it around the base. Wrap this copper foil over the inner foil that came on top of the wire that we just pulled back to the bottom of the wire, like so. There you go. So the reason we do this is to ensure proper ground of the network cable. Next, we remove this foil that's on top of. If you see here, the cross section, there's 4 pairs of wires in here, individually twisted wires. So we are going to remove this foil that's covering those wires to expose the wires. So we take these apart. So as you can see, each one has its own shielding. So we're going to take each of these apart. There you go, that's one. If it doesn't come off by pulling on it, you can just cut it. Just be careful not to cut the wire themselves, just the foil around it. So all 4 twisted pairs are exposed. So now that we have the foil over these individual twisted pairs taken off, it's time to analyze the wiring that's inside this cable. So there's 2 wiring schemes that are used when you terminate a network cable. It's 568A and 568B. And this matters because if you wire it the wrong way, so if the cable is laid out in a 568B scheme and you wire it in a 568A, instead, you'll suffer from network performance latencies and issues, and there'll be a drop in the network performance. So it's important to get this step right. So the way to do this is to make sure that you identify the layout properly. So if you look at the cable from the top down, you'll have these 4 pairs. So look at the brown and white, this one right here. So the one that's diagonally opposite the brown and white is this orange and white cable in this case. So this is a 568B arrangement. If the orange and white is across from or diagonally opposite from brown and white, it's 568B. If the green and white would have been diagonally opposite from the brown and white, that would have been a 568A arrangement. But when you do this, make sure it's not twisted at the base and everything is clearly separated out like this. So this is how the wire is inside the cable. So in this case, orange and white is across from brown and white, which means this is a 568B arrangement. I'll throw up a picture of what the 568A and the 568B looks like, so for your reference. But this is a 568B arrangement. Now the next step is to just untwist these wires so that it's easier to load in the cable loader, which we'll see in the next step here. Just make sure you keep the white that was together with that color. That way you know that they go together. So we have them all straightened out, still together. The white and the brown, the white and the orange, the white and the blue, and the white and the green. So before you go to the next step, just make sure you get this cable loader out of the box of the termination kit. This little plastic piece, that's the cable loader. That's what's going to go inside this, on top of this. So this is the cable loader, and it's actually marked. So if you see here, hopefully you can see that, it shows the green and orange on the top, and if you flip this around, the brown and the blue are at the bottom. And it also has notations for the A and B schemes. Since we have a B scheme, so the orange will be on the right and the green will be on the left. And similarly, at the bottom, in our case, the blue will be on the right and the brown will be on the left. So let's wire the orange and the green first. So let's take the orange and the green and then slide these. Again, keep the orange and white set together and the green and its white together. Slide these through here. The solid orange going through the box showing the square. like so, and the white for the orange going on the triangle box, like so. Same thing for the green. They're gone through and come out the other side. Now we'll do the same thing for the bottom. You see brown is on the right, so that should go over here. Brown, it's white, and then the blue, solid blue, followed by the white for this blue. All right, so we have all of them wired. Okay, so now that we have the wires drawn through the cable loader, let's cut off the excess at the top here, because that's going to have to go through this jack. So this whole cable loader will sit on top of this. So there's excess wire needs to be cut off. So I can do that with my wire cutter. Like so. So one thing to also note, that when you're cutting off the excess wires from the front of this cable loader, that you also turn it over and cut off the excess wires that are on the underside. That's the blue white and the brown white wires. Also prevent those wires from extending past this notch as well, so that the blue and white and the brown and white don't extend past this notch, and the green and white and the orange and white don't extend past the front of the cable loader. So that's how it should look like. All right, so now we basically put this cable loader that sits on this little slot here. So if you see on the side, it looks like that. So the indents should go a line like that, pushing down on the wires or crimping the wires into place. And since it's thick wire, it won't go all the way in, but push it as much as you can with your hand, and then you close this on top of it with this copper foil landing in this little spot where the hole is. And then you use your pliers to push this together. There you go. And then, while holding this in place, get the boot up and over, and the boot threads onto the jack to keep this in place, like that. So there you go, nice and flush, both sides. And now, if you want, you can use pliers to tighten this further. So while I hold this in place, I'm going to turn this boot to tighten it. There you go. That's it. Nice and tight. So now that we have this plugged or terminated, I'm going to plug this at the back of my NVR. As I mentioned before, I have a 8-channel NVR, so I can plug 8 cameras in. I have 4 of them already, so I have 4 open slots. I'm going to plug this in here in one of the open slots. There you go. It's plugged in. So that completes the connections here and to the camera. Now it's time to see the new camera shows up on the app. So this is what my Reolink camera systems look like. There's the 4 cameras. Those are the 4 cameras that I have currently in my system. Now that I've connected my 5th camera, 6th camera should show up automatically It just takes a few seconds, so let's see if it refreshes automatically. Not quite yet. It still shows the 4 cameras. Oh, there you go. It just showed up as camera 1. And I can rename this afterwards, but this is the camera. It's just showing a brick wall here because that's just right next to my front yard. So yeah, it shows there right there. So that's the new camera. It showed up automatically. So everything's good, looking good. Thanks for watching and see you next time.